Good morning. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Ki Wong, for inviting me here. I think the interesting speech of Honorable Minister Turnbull is probably nothing else to say. I was trying to introduce my speech, but I have to change it because he took it all. So let me start by saying he referred already to the fact that although it's exciting to talk about the Internet of Things today, we shouldn't forget, for some of us who are in science and research, it's just only 25 to 30 years old. So it's good that politicians have taken up on this right rapidly. I don't know what your experiences are. My first experience with that is almost 25 years ago, when I was with a company that doesn't even exist anymore. Some of you, a couple of you with gray hairs, who knows Digital Equipment Corporation? Anyone? Okay, few. Okay, I was one of the proud members of Digital Equipment Corporation, and we invented the Coke machine on the internet. Okay, so together with SAP and Coca-Cola and Digital, it was 1997 that we hooked up our Coke machine to the ERP system, R3 at that time, at Coca-Cola. And we showed that at CeBIT, one of the largest fairs in the world on IT. We didn't coin the term, unfortunately, so we called it machine to ERP. Pretty boring, typical Germans that don't invent good terms for this. Anyway, so yeah, I have quite some experience, and throughout that last 2.5 decades, I saw that this is really changing rapidly the world, so I can only support Honorable Minister Turnbull in saying this is really changing the world and we should all be part of. So what I'm going to talk about today, and I hope that my slides get on now, is that I'm going to give you an insight about the activities we're going to do right now in Europe around using the Internet of Things in a very concrete environment, an environment that all of us day by day is part of, which is the city, the urban environment we are living in. So my talk today is all about the insights in a city, those that Honorable Minister Turnbull already talked about. One of it definitely is traffic. And how do we run cities or urban regions? We sometimes call them the metropolitan regions, because talking to politicians, you see a difference if you say city or if you say metropolitan region. It's the urban environment we're talking about, and how to make them even smarter. And that's another important term. Some people coined the term smart city, and also the European Commission calls it smart cities and communities. It's difficult. If you say smart city, then the others are dumb cities? Okay, so we call it smarter city. We all know cities are already smart. How do we make them smarter? I see Glenn smiling already. Thank you. So let me give you a visionary perspective, so to say. And we heard about that already. First of all, sensors are everywhere. So we're not talking anymore about what is coming. It's already there. And I will respond to one particular aspect a bit later, and remind me if I forget that, when talking about traffic and Google Waze as an example. Next is, because of these sensors are there and they produce data, we believe strongly that there's a new urban infrastructure to come, which we really haven't tapped into yet. We call it the infrastructure of data streams and analytics. And again, welcome to our friends in America or anywhere else in the world to find a better term for it. But it's definitely something that we, in a couple of years, will respect and assume as a standard infrastructure the same way as we have water, gas, and electricity. It's about providing insight into the pulse of the city or the region. By having that and having the ability to do so, we will see new services to occur. new public services, but also new private services to occur. And yes, it's a shake-up, as Honourable Minister Turnbull already said, to the existing services, and I think it's great for you here that you launch tomorrow the Digital Transformation Office. It's the right way to go, but it's not only the digital transformation of existing services. We have to think about many new services that will occur, and we have to think about how we're going to make them happen. And I'm going to talk about that. And finally, we strongly believe, and we heard about that already, that the value proposition is clearly a cloud-based, open, real-time urban platform game. And there are a lot of questions. We heard about security already from Honourable Minister Turnbull. That's one big topic, but it's also the business and operational model that we have to take into that. So, the conclusion we have defined is it's all about integrating urban infrastructures in a holistic way, and that's the big challenge. Because we're about to break down silos that have existed for decades, that infrastructures have been developed independently, and that there is still quite some resistance in overcoming the current situation for a more holistic way. That's the reason why in 2012, actually at the end of 2011, the EU Commission, under the President of Barroso, decided to come up with an initiative to stimulate this particular vision, to bring it forward. And so what happened was that in 2012, Commissioner Günther Oettinger, at that time in charge for energy, and two other commissioners have been asked to create an initiative which we call in Europe the European Innovation Partnerships on the specific issue on how to address that in cities and in communities. That has been established since then, and we have worked over the past 2.5 years to define what is it that needs to be done in order to make this vision real. Now, where we at today is that we have about nearly 400, so 370 is the number correctly, commitments or initiatives in Europe of more than 3,000 partners engaged to make this vision real. If you have such a large crowd, you have to find a way to operate on this, so we decided that we organized that in so-called 6 working groups or action clusters, as they're being called, and you see the 6 different ones. So it's really about integrated infrastructures and open data, something we're going to talk about in depth today here, a lot dealing here with the Internet of Things. It's also, as Honourable Minister Turnbull already turned out, about sustainable urban mobility, a very important element for all of us. Although I must say this morning when I walked over from the hotel to the convention center, it looks like Canberra may not be the typical case because it was not as crowded as I'm used to have traffic in other parts of the world I am. So you may have been to the wrong place, but anyway, but let's talk about that. I think many other cities at least should acknowledge that I'm adjunct professor at Queensland University of Technology in Brisbane, and being in Brisbane, it's quite different. And other parts of the world too, like Berlin or Munich. It's about the built environment, a lot gonna happen inside our buildings, and the related energy topic about that. And as rightfully Honourable Minister Turnbull turned out, it's about the customer or citizen. And we shouldn't forget that. And so that's why we put a very special emphasis on this topic. It's not about technology, it's about the citizen focus. Yeah, and then when you talk to politicians and when you work with politicians, you have to talk about politics and regulations. That's an important element. So we have that as a work group that we're dealing with. But most importantly to all of that, when it comes and boils down, it's about the business models and the financial. And one of the key issues that we would like to address and make very clear is this should not be on the Treasurer's budget. We're not here to say more budget for investing into more technology. It's the call for using the budget clever and in a wise way and engage in public-private partnerships and the like. There's a lot in for many private businesses to be part of, and that should be considered, and that's why we have a specific working group on this topic. Talking about this will lead to new initiatives, but in order to make it real for the citizens and for us, we thought that we have to have some Lighthouse initiatives. We call them internally the quick wins. And I'm going to go through some of them today. There are many more, but for the time that I have chosen a few of them just to give you an insight on what it would mean, and also food for thoughts for you maybe here to think about that. So towards an integrated infrastructure. The first thing is, and that's one of our key messages, is we believe in open urban platforms. And what we're going to see right now, honestly, is that because we are not yet there, that cities sitting on the fence waiting for something to occur. As Elizabeth mentioned, we are collaborating with McKinsey in the Smart City Forum, and in 2012 we conducted an interview series with the cities, and that was clearly number one outcome. Why haven't you invested yet in smarter city solutions is because they haven't seen a neutral or open or somewhat non-vendor lock-in solutions to occur, and so they're hesitant to invest because they don't know what's going to happen afterwards to them. So we have taken that on, and we looked at that and we say, where are we at? Why an open platform? First of all, a common open architecture is SEEK, by which cities exploit data and connect apps to the city infrastructure. So how is this openness being defined? It's about replicability and scalability. We shouldn't forget, when we talk about smarter cities, yeah, we can refer to Barcelona, we can refer to Singapore, but if you take Europe, 50% of the urban population lives in cities not larger than 150,000 citizens. And I probably assume that in Australia it's not much different if I would have a check here. So yeah, while we have these lighthouse like Singapore, Barcelona, and many others, keep in mind the solution must scale down. It must scale down to sizes of 25,000 inhabitants. Or I learned yesterday 1,500, maybe even. So how do we do that? So reuse of existing infrastructure, not investing even more where possible, and interoperability at all levels is really required, and I come to that. And finally, that's particularly to the public services, it's truly a cross-sectoral service delivery, including private services as well. And we'll come to that. So the criteria set by the cities, as I already mentioned, open, open, and open. So that's what we would like to address here. And a couple of things that all of you who are familiar with the topic would assume, including security, scalability. And very important is the last topic, never do it at once, but having precinct for scaling it out is something that most of the cities are keen on to work on. Our institute has followed that very, very strictly, and we have come up with a reference architecture and implementation of that platform, taking some of that into consideration. These are the topics that we have chosen based upon the fact that in Europe we have a very important and ambitious set of goals for environmental infrastructure, for sustainability, the so-called EU climate goals 2020, which are called the 20-20-20 goals in 2020, which means 20% efficiency increase in energy consumption, 20% decrease of greenhouse gas emission, especially CO2, and 20% of use of renewable energy. That leads then to these areas that you can see: traffic, lighting, mobility, and energy. And I'm gonna take you through some of these examples. I'm very excited that after our dinner yesterday, Susan, I launched an initiative in Europe on these open urban platforms together with the Commission under the leadership of Günther Oettinger. We're gonna have a come together of the leading industry with cities to define a reference architecture for open urban platforms. And we received great feedback yesterday night throughout our night here, the working days over in Europe. And we assume that by May we're gonna launch this reference architecture to help cities to get away from the fence and start implementing on it. So one of the topics we heard about is the traffic and the information about the traffic flow. So how can we link and scale up projects and ideas for urban integrated traffic systems and services in smart cities? A topic all over the world that you are working on, that we are working on. And having a look into that, we can see this is really something that can kickstart making cities smarter. If you haven't done anything, then start with that. It is an immediate benefit for all of us, at least for those of us who are commuters in a busy city or metropolitan region. Give you a figure from a well-known German city, maybe some of you have been there, city of Munich in Bavaria. If you haven't heard about it, you probably have heard about the Oktoberfest, and then you know what city I'm talking about. Now, talking to the head of city planning, Klaus Illigmann, he clearly stated that we have the following situation. Because it's a very popular city, it's a growing city. It's a city that is about 1.5 million inhabitants, and they have an expected growth of 16% new population till 2020. Now, the road infrastructure is a road infrastructure that is of a city of hundreds of years, and so it's very limited in expanding the road infrastructure, so you have to live with what you have. Now, that city has 2 hours commuting rush hour in the morning, 2 hours commuting rush hour in the afternoon. With the predicted increase, without doing anything, they have estimated, based on calculation, that in 2020, they're going to be 4 hours in the morning and 4 hours in the afternoon. That's probably not working anymore. So unless we find completely new ways on how to work from home and with Internet of Things, maybe another topic, if we have any need to get into the city must be smarter on how to handle that traffic flow. So we need a platform or platforms for better public-private cooperation on this urban integrated traffic system solutions. And here's a pledge. And I would like to be a bit controversial to what Honorable Minister Turnbull said. Yes, we can talk about these fantastic ideas of using our smartphones and detect our smartphones and taking the speed and then calculating the traffic situation like the one he referred to, Google Waze. But if you go and talk about that in Germany, you will have hit a very, very difficult point of privacy. And we're known for that in Germany, yes. For those of the big vendors, they all know, go to Germany, fix your solution over there in terms of privacy. If you've done that, you have done it for the rest of the world. Nevertheless, what I would like to stress here is we all have that data on hand already. There is actually that data available. It's just not visible to us as the consumers. And that's the pledge that we have. And that is an example here from the city of Darmstadt, nearby Frankfurt Airport. Whenever you come to Frankfurt Airport, one of the major airport hubs in Europe, and you step out and get across the street, you hit this city, very famous for their technical university, some of you may know. That city did something very, very simple. It took the traffic light information that they have to run the traffic light system and just make it publicly available. And that has allowed them to provide data in real time to the consumers and to the visitors in a very easy way. The second topic I would like to stress is the integrated smart street lighting. And here we see a new infrastructure on a very old infrastructure to occur. We call it the humble lampposts. The idea about that is to use a pan-European initiative to take the idea of leveraging the fact that there is a need to change light to a more energy efficient lighting, which is LED, and based upon that, creating a complete new city infrastructure. Here are some figures in Europe that gives you an idea about what we are talking. So we have about 60 to 90 million light posts in Europe that we can count for this, and 75 of them needs to be renovated anyway. The savings are tremendous for the treasurer. Up to 50% of the energy budget is dedicated to the lighting, and because of that, we have a business case for practically all of the cities. Up to 75% energy savings is assumed, and that would lead to a tremendous impact on the 2020 goals I was referring to. So we believe that by 2020, almost 80% of 10 million light posts could be replaced by this and create, therefore, an environment that will allow for many more things to occur. There is a sample in Germany that already has demonstrated great value to this. And finally, talking about Tesla is a good point to refer to sustainable urban mobility, electrical vehicles for smart cities and communities, big topic in the EU, and we wanted to improve the take-up of these EVs in smart cities. It's a large collaboration called EV for SCC, Electrical Vehicle for Smart City and Communities. More than 50 organizations are involved throughout Europe, and it's making EVs attractive and affordable for Europe. There will be a big show on this. The International Automobile Show in Frankfurt, first time, will address this issue in their new mobility world, taking place in September, where you can see a tremendous move forward in that space. There's a reference case in the city of Berlin that has taken up and has demonstrated that it's a true opportunity for every fleet operator in a city to leverage electrical vehicle already today. So to come to a conclusion for today, we think that the readiness of the Internet of Things in the cities is such that we can start now. Our institute has been an advisor to many of those, as already mentioned, and we had demonstrated together with the European Commission, the German government, and respected Lighthouse projects in cities like Berlin, Cologne, Munich, that this is something ready to go for now, and I hope this stimulates some discussions about the situation here in Australia and what are you going to do. Thank you very much for your attention.